I'm so glad to be here. You know, coming here kind of reminds me of the old Wally George show. Remember that show?
He had better hair than you did.
Anyway,
Wally George is smart.
I'm really pleased to be here. I want to do just a very brief background on some of my electoral history.
I hope it's real brief.
I'll start with the 2012 elections when Dr. Ruiz and I ended complete Republican domination of Riverside County representation at the federal level.
Sadly.
As far as I know, the Riverside County was 100% red at the federal level, and Dr. Ruiz and I turned Riverside County 2/3 blue. It's not about Dr. Ruiz and I.
It's been going downhill ever since.
The homeless over there?
That's what's a shithole.
I think we should have some level of civility here.
Then-
I'll respect.
Then respect our president.
I just asked if you
Why don't you respect our president? Why don't you respect our president? That'd be a good start.
Guys. Yes. All right. So here's the thing. The Riverside County was 2/3, is now 2/3 blue. And the reason I got there is not because of Dr. Ruiz and myself, it was because of the people of Riverside County. I have to say I was shocked at the margin that I had in 2012. I won with 59% of the vote, which was more than what I was.
Woo!
I have to say, in 2016, there was concern about how well Democrats would do around California, and in 2016, I won with 65% of the vote.
It's called voter fraud.
The one thing that I want to mention about that is I thought that what was significant about that is who was on the ballot as well. But what was also remarkable, what I noticed about Orange County, was that for the first time in decades, first time in decades,
Sadly.
Orange County voted in favor of the Democratic nominee for president.
Right.
Thank God for voter fraud.
So now the streets are full of homeless.
And you can attribute that to many things. There's been no...
Like the campaign was over.
It's not been proven. There's no cases of systematic voting fraud.
Yes. 80 ballots in San Pedro.
Oh, please, doctor.
A lot of hurt feelings and a lot of denial going on.
Voter fraud.
About what's going on with the Republican Party and
we're winning.
Why I think in 2018 Orange County is going to go blue with its representation. Let me get down to the the GOP tax scam, which explodes the debt, runs Medicare, Medicaid, and investments in families. Now, I have to say that during the campaign trail for the presidency in 2016, I heard candidate Donald Trump talk about protecting Medicare. I heard him talking about protecting Medicaid. I think a lot of Obama voters who voted for Obama heard a different kind of Republican candidate for president. Somebody who was a populist. Somebody who cared about ordinary Americans. In fact, Donald Trump in his inauguration speech talked about a commitment to ordinary Americans. And therefore, I was surprised that he spent the first 2-3 months of his presidency trying to take away the health care for ordinary Americans and embracing the congressional Republican agenda. That was not a move that Donald Trump had to make. Indeed, I was very, very concerned about how this was going to go down, given some of Donald Trump's other kinds of opinions, his views on foreign affairs, his views on immigration, which I think are wrong-headed. I was afraid that this president would truly adopt a populist agenda and become incredibly influential and powerful. But instead, he chose to embrace Paul Ryan, he chose to embrace Mitch McConnell, and after doing something very, very unpopular, which reduced his popularity faster than we've seen any modern president lose the popularity, he, after trying to take away health care from 24 million Americans, he went after a terrible, terrible tax scam that did the same old. Trickle down, he doubled down on trickle down. He helped push through a tax plan that reduces taxes for the very, very, very wealthy.
For everybody.
And really leaves the middle class with very, very little. In fact, over time, the middle class is going to suffer even more and more.
That's a lie.
So what does this tax plan do? It's doing the
Saves me
same
money.
thing that we've seen Republicans do over and over again.
Save us money.
The last time the Republicans pushed through an unpaid for tax cut, we went from surpluses to projected deficits.
That was the Iraq War.
Exactly.
Iraq War.
The Center for Budget and Policy Priorities estimates that the Bush tax cuts caused about 1/3 of our current debt.
Obama did.
We know from past experience what the Republican plan is. Step one, create a false sense of urgency, create a giant hole in the budget that will balloon the national debt. We know.
You mean like Obama did?
He doubled the deficit.
Isn't that what Obama did?
$2.3 trillion.
Obama doubled the debt.
Step two. Sure.
Again, we were everybody in this room was told the rules and regulations of what is expected in this meeting, in this setting. That goes for everybody. I'm not impartial. I'm not on any side here. I'm impartial, and I'm here to enforce the laws and the rules and regulations that were in place for this event today. Again, this is the last and final warning. Okay, that goes for everybody in this room, including myself.
Thank you. Just sorry, it's just when we hear lies, it's like that.
Yeah, we don't like being lied to. The bullshit meter's going off the Richter scale right now.
I do that every day in my job.
Okay.
I'm sure you have to put up with a lot of BS too.
A liar like that guy.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, sir.
Thank you. So step one, create a giant hole in the budget that will balloon the national debt. We're talking under this tax plan, $2.3 trillion.
Now they care about the deficit?
Step two, use that hole to justify cuts to education, infrastructure, and children. And what's going to happen now that we've created this $2.3 trillion debt over the next 10 years, debt that the Republicans say that without any basis of any kind of history or fact, will be covered by increased revenues. We've never seen a tax cut of this scale result in being offset by revenues. That we will see a setup not only to cut education, infrastructure, and children, but what will be in the crosshairs are Medicare and Medicaid, the very things that the president said that he was committed to protecting. Step three, use the debt to justify cuts in benefits like Medicare and Social Security. So I see here in this tax plan a fundamental betrayal of what Donald Trump said that he was going to do for the country. And the signs that say lie here should be pointed at Donald Trump, who is the big liar here.
You're a liar.
You're the only liar in the room right now.
Ken Calvert says hello.
The tax scam puts corporations and the richest ahead of everybody else. The very people.
How do you know that?
Going to drain the swamp on.
How do you know that?
83% of the tax cuts goes to the wealthiest 1%. This tax plan ultimately raises taxes on 86 million middle-class families, and it hands $1.3 trillion in permanent tax breaks to big corporations, and it rewards corporations for shipping jobs overseas and adding more loopholes for special interests to exploit. Even on common sense policies The middle class loses while corporations are protected. Families lose the ability to write off their share of state and local taxes, and corporations don't. An employee who's forced to move because his company moves in order to keep his job has lost his ability to write off his or her moving expenses. Corporations don't lose that ability. Now, as I said, this tax plan explodes the debt by $2.3 trillion, and it targets Medicare and Medicaid. Republicans have stuck our children with a bill for their debt-exploding giveaways to the wealthiest, and will use the debt they created to justify ransacking the future of Medicare, Medicaid, education, veterans, and working families. And even under the most generously optimistic economic conditions, the Joint Committee on Taxation found that the GOP tax cuts will not pay for themselves. And as a result, next year alone, Medicare is facing cuts by $25 billion.
Blah.
Farmers will watch assistance to them dry up. Customs and Border Patrol will take a $1.3 billion hit.
What?
The GOP tax plan is just another attack on health care, particularly for those Americans with pre-existing conditions. 13 million Americans will no longer have health care coverage, driving up health care premiums by an additional 10%. Premium increases will result in Americans with pre-existing conditions losing affordable coverage. Now, I want to mention one more thing, and then I'll stop and we can take questions.
Thank God.
The tax bill harms Californians and people in the 39th Congressional District in particular. And what I'm talking about is slashing the state and local tax deductions, otherwise known as SALT deductions. This bill, this tax scam, allows companies to continue getting their SALT deductions, but it would slash the benefit for individuals and families, leaving only a property income or sales tax deduction capped at $10,000.
Why is that a
More
problem?
than 100 million Americans and 44 million households claim the deduction for SALT. More than 6 million Californians claim the SALT deduction at an average value of $18,000.
No, I get like
1/3 of the filers in the 39th Congressional District, this district, the citizens of this district, 1/3 of the taxpayers right here in this district claim more than $3.3 million. The average deduction is more than $15,000 per person. Now, any representative who goes to Washington and votes to increase their taxes at the expense of every other, and puts them at the expense of people across this country, I think is guilty of political malpractice, and that is what Edwards did.
Boo! You voted against Kate's law.
Who would he did? And you would be a fool to replace him with a Republican.
Yeah!
Yes.
Young Kim.
Do much of the same thing.
Go Young
do
Kim.
It all over again in the next 4 years.
Young Kim.
So let me stop there.
Thank God.
And let's talk a little more and have any questions that folks have, and we can bring back some of our other speakers as well.
Yes, sir.
Professor.
Absolutely.
Please go.
I would like to say from my